Now the latest from ITV News Meridian with Sangeeta, Bhabra and Fred Dinenage.
Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the southeast. 2/3 of forecourts are out of fuel as the government holds talks on the crisis. So, how are businesses and families being affected?
My mother can't walk and she wants to see my father too in hospital today or tomorrow. So she won't actually be able to go. If I don't have petrol in my car, my mother actually won't be able to see my father.
More queues and diversions on the M25 as specialists spend the day dealing with a failure on a motorway bridge.
A month since he fled the Taliban, a student tells us how he's being helped to rebuild his life in Sussex.
And meet the first of our Pride of Britain fundraisers. Tonight, the 19-year-old who went in search of the best full English in memory of his mum and dad. Good evening. There are continuing calls for drivers to buy fuel responsibly as filling stations struggle to keep up with increased demand.
Well, despite the government insisting there is no fuel shortage, there have been long queues at pumps across the southeast with motorists unwilling to risk running out.
The Petrol Retailers Association has warned that around 2/3 of its outlets are now out of fuel. Meanwhile, the government says it has no plans to use the army to make deliveries to forecourts. Malcolm Shaw has our report.
The Monday morning rush hour, and anyone hoping to swing by the petrol station to top up for the week ahead was out of luck here in Lewes. Both garages were closed, the pumps sealed off. A few miles out of town, this filling station reported demand up by 4 times the normal amount, staff bearing the brunt of drivers' frustration.
Verbal abuse mainly towards the staff, and then when a tanker does arrive, trying to get onto the forecourt, verbal abuse towards the driver as well. Sadly, there's a lot of frustration with the queuing on the forecourts, and when our tanker drivers have arrived to deliver the fuel, it's been very difficult for them to get onto the forecourt, so we've been trying to close the forecourt only 5 or 10 minutes early to make room for the tanker arriving. But with the frustration and sometimes anger, it's been very difficult for the staff to be able to do so.
This garage at West Malling in Kent apparently tried to ration fuel and prioritise key workers, but it still ran dry. Whoever is to blame for the dwindling supplies, there's real hardship emerging. Teresa Lanny desperately needed petrol to get to hospital to see her father, who's seriously ill.
It's imperative that I go and see my father. I just want to be with him, and I will do anything that I can to be with him, and if it means I have to walk to see him, then I will. But that is the ultimate option. But my mother can't walk, and she wants to see my father too in hospital today or tomorrow.
And those who depend on their cars for their livelihoods are concerned. Taxi driver Colin Rees has been able to get fuel so far, but he says the uncertainty is the last thing his business needs as it recovers from the pandemic.
We're just about back to about 80% back of our customers now, which is good. We just do what we can and get fuel where we can. If I see a garage and I'm half empty, I'll go in and top it up, but I won't queue.
Today, the government insisted there's no shortage of fuel, just a limited shortage of tanker drivers. But for those motorists who are running on empty, the distinction doesn't come as much comfort. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News.
Live now to our political correspondent Phil Hornby, who's in Brighton for the Labour Party conference. Phil, first of all, what is the government doing to solve this crisis?
Well, Sangeeta, there have been talk of them bringing in the army. They're not doing that for now. They're just pleading with motorists to be sensible. A similar message has just come out from the big fuel companies. Esso, BP, Shell, etc. have issued a joint statement basically calling on people to be sensible and saying that the situation should improve over the next few days.
And Phil, where you are, Labour's conference, it's a really important week for their leader.
Yes, it really is. Keir Starmer's got to stamp his authority on his own party and at the same time send out a message to voters, particularly in the southeast. The Labour leader not in Brighton, in Hove actually, meeting voters.
Maybe I'll buy one of those for my speech on Wednesday.
Talking about Labour's economic policy. Hove is a rare place, somewhere in the southeast, that actually has a Labour MP.
Where are we going?
We're going to Little Jasmine on the right up here.
Okay, we're in your hands, Pete.
Yeah.
So what does he want from this conference?
I think Keir this week has just got to show some of his character, to show some of his priorities, and speak with real force about where he wants to take the country under his leadership.
I think Labour has made a shift in the past few years from being more of a protest movement into something that can really inspire people.
Be better off without Jeremy Corbyn?
I think so, yeah.
That's not a view shared by everyone here. Many members, it seems, especially some of the younger ones, wish Jeremy Corbyn was still in charge.
Solidarity, comrades! Solidarity! Fight for socialism!
Is it your mission to turn the Labour Party away from Corbynism back towards Blairism?
My mission is to turn the Labour Party into a party that absolutely focuses on working people and working families.
I mentioned Tony Blair because under Tony Blair you won both seats in Brighton, you won Crawley, you won Thurrock, you won Basildon, you won Dartford, Gravesham, Medway Towns, Dover, Hastings and Rye. You're miles away from that at the moment.
Well, that's exactly why I'm spending a lot of time talking across the south, the southeast. We need to persuade people who voted Labour in the past but don't now to vote Labour again. Persuade people who've never voted Labour to vote Labour again. And I grew up in the southeast, so I grew up in a rural area in the southeast. I understand, how working families, think and what their priorities are in the south. The only way to do that is to focus on the things that absolutely matter to them: education, work, health and security.
Is he the man to take you to victory?
Is Keir the man to take me to victory? I would say so. I'm convinced by him. I like him. I think he's extremely competent. I think he could do it being a little bit more direct. I think he's not perfect,
We need to give people hope. You can see what's happening around us at the moment. There's so much despair in the air. Communities are breaking into pieces, high streets are dead, and people just want revival. We need that reviving fire, and that's what people want to take away from here.
Is Starmer the man? Has he got fire in his belly?
Well, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see.
For Brighton itself and the local economy, the conference is a much-needed shot in the arm. 2 shots in the arm, or a negative test, are supposed to be needed to get in, although lots of people, including me, weren't checked today, and from now on, not everyone will be. There have been concerns that a mass gathering like this could be a COVID super spreader event. Sir Keir Starmer has promised us the conference is safe. Let's hope he's right. Well, I can assure you ventilation is not a problem up here on the roof of the Brighton Centre. And it was all going so well for Sir Keir Starmer until about half an hour ago when a senior member of his shadow cabinet, Andy MacDonald, resigned, accusing Sir Keir of breaking his promises and presiding over a movement more divided than ever before. And that is not the message that Labour want to send out from here in Brighton. Instead, they want to talk about policies. Today they were talking about the economy. Tomorrow it'll be Home Affairs, law and order and immigration. Be interesting to see what Labour have to say about the problems with the small boats in the Channel. And then on Wednesday, Sir Keir Starmer's big speech. Last year, I should say, he made his speech just to a television camera. There was nobody in the room. This year, the crowded hall will be there to listen to him, and he's got to make a big impact.
Phil, in blustery Brighton, thank you.
In other news, a mother from Hove has been charged with murdering her 10-year-old son who lived with severe physical and mental disabilities. Pembe Mehmet Alio Galari had been living at Eastview Terrace in Sedlescombe with her son Mustafa. In September 2018, he was admitted to hospital where he died 3 days later. A toxicology examination suggests the death was due to administration of non-prescribed medication. The 47-year-old is due to appear at Lewes Crown Court tomorrow.
A man arrested in Eastbourne remains in custody in connection with the murder of Sabina Nessa. The 28-year-old teacher had been walking to meet a friend in south-east London last week when she was fatally attacked. The 36-year-old's arrest has been described by police as a significant development.
Emergency repair work to a damaged bridge on the M25 brought traffic on the QE2 bridge and clockwise London Orbital to a standstill today.
A section of the road was closed at junction 3 with the M20, the Swanley interchange, for more than 5 hours, creating jams back to the Dartford crossing.
Well, Sarah Saunders has been on the scene and said this in the past hour.
At 8 o'clock this morning, National Highways had to close part of the M25 bridge that you can see over my shoulder because of a damaged bridge joint. Now, it seems to have been at the point where the bridge meets the road in lanes 1 and 2, going clockwise. Now, while emergency repairs were carried out there, traffic was forced off this slip road and had to go round and rejoin. Not much of a diversion, but as you can imagine, it wasn't very long until queues of well over an hour were forming and tailbacks 13 kilometres long right back to the QE2 bridge at Dartford. Now, that is particularly relevant today of all days because it's the route that some lorries will have been using to get into Kent from the Essex oil refineries. Now, repairs have been done, the road is reopened. This is what one leading civil engineer had to say.
The problem with bridges is they expand and contract. They're much more exposed to temperature effects than buildings are typically. And they need machines to allow them to expand and contract. And it's the machines most often that fail. Bridge temperatures vary much more than air temperatures. So they heat up in the sun, especially when they've got black tops on them.
Now, it's not long since this very junction was closed by climate activists Insulate Britain. They also blocked the entrance to the port of Dover last week, you'll remember. And today they were causing disruption elsewhere on the M25 near to Heathrow Airport in defiance of a court injunction. They say, however, we can expect more disruption from them in coming days and weeks.
More news. A man from Sevenoaks has been jailed after police caught him trying to hide cocaine worth £2 million. Officers witnessed Roy Basson taking part in a drug deal before attempting to conceal 20 blocks of cocaine inside a specially built compartment in his van. The 39-year-old was sentenced to 11 years in prison.
The biggest road building project in the south-east, which would connect Kent and Essex, is one step closer to construction. National Highways has announced the company shortlisted for the road's building contracts either side of the proposed Lower Thames crossing. New plans for the project are due to be submitted later this year after an original application was withdrawn. Now, last month we saw thousands of Afghan nationals being rescued as the Taliban took control of the country, with many of them being airlifted to the UK. But what happens to refugees once they arrive here?
Well, a project launched by the University of Sussex is helping to provide support to students from Afghanistan who've been unable to access funding for things like household goods, books and warm clothing.
One of those that has been helped by the scheme is Naimat Zafari, who is embracing his new life here. Tom Savides has been to meet him.
This is Naimat Zafari's first day on campus at the University of Sussex. He feared he would never get to England to study after being caught up in the chaos at Kabul airport as the Taliban took control of Afghanistan.
So it was a very shocking day of my whole life, which I will never forget. So we went there, and I went there, and there was this Talib boy who was just barely 16 or 17. So I said, well, I'm going for studies. But this guy, he very ironically looked at me and said, you know, I don't like your face. Get out of here, unless I'll blow you up.
It must have been quite frightening.
It was. I mean, if he would have slapped me, if he would have beaten me, or he would have killed me.
As Kabul fell, thousands desperately tried to leave Afghanistan. Naimat was travelling with his family and a group of other students. It took them 2 days to get onto a British military plane.
I saw British soldiers. They gave their hand to me, took me out of the pool, and they asked me, okay, who are with you in this shivering? Because we had a sign of Shivering Scholarship. And this, I pointed out to those who were with us, so we took out all that.
The father of 4 young children has been accepted onto a scholarship programme to study governance, development and public policy.
You could see my commitment towards education. My commitment is that I will make it, and I made it. I feel very proud. I feel fortunate. But from the other side, I feel for my people, for my country.
This year, 12 Afghan students have enrolled in courses here at the University of Sussex. Moves are now underway to support them through their studies with a fundraising campaign. Do you think you will ever return to Afghanistan to live?
I'm a father of 3 daughters. If they say no to go to education, don't you think I'm playing with their life and taking them back to the country where education is no more there? And they have the right to do the education, and for which I fought, for which I fought my whole life.
Despite all the odds, Neymat Zafri was able to get to England, for which he will be eternally grateful. Tom Savidas, ITV News, Falmer.
And it's 16 minutes past 6 and the ITV Evening News continues here with the national and international news at 6:30 with more Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, the latest on the fuel crisis as the government says it is not planning to call in the army. Ministers blame people panic buying for shortages, but huge queues and empty forecourts persist across the country. Also ahead, the champion skater whose Olympic nightmare ended in online abuse and self-harm. And why Fulham's players picked out 13-year-old Reese to celebrate with. You do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Mary, thank you. It's been exactly 2 months since the contraceptive pill became available to buy over the counter for the first time in the UK, meaning women no longer have to see their GP for a prescription.
Well, although this landmark change has made the pill more accessible for many women, some experts argue there is still some way to go until all women are able to access contraception as easily. Amrit Birdie can tell us more.
The contraceptive pill was first introduced in this country 60 years ago, and yet just 2 months ago it became available to buy without a prescription. The over-the-counter progesterone-only pill, or mini pill, is deemed safe for use by most women. It's a milestone moment in the way women in the UK can access contraception. At this pharmacy in Tunbridge in Kent, they've seen steady interest in the over-the-counter pill.
We have had quite a bit of interest from the general public. I've had quite a few interactions with patients who've asked some questions about it. We've had somebody who's kind of moved to the area and has had a little bit of trouble trying to get registered with a GP, and obviously wanted to continue with the medication and made sure there wasn't any break in medication. And obviously that's a case where actually that's perfect for them.
Sexual health doctor Nabanita Ghosh says further steps can be taken to ensure women get the contraception they need, such as making other variations of the pill, like the combined pill, which includes estrogen as well as progesterone, available over the counter too.
The only thing with the current pill that we are dispensing, it's the progesterone only pill or the mini pill. And a third of women discontinue this pill. Why? Because there's bleeding problems associated with it. So although 2/3 will continue, a third will discontinue because of the bleeding problems. Whereas in future, if we were able to dispense the combined contraceptive pill, this will not happen. And this will make more women able to continue the pill safely and avoid unwanted pregnancy.
The fact that you have to pay to access the pill in this way, up to £10 a month, could be alienating some women who can't afford it.
If you're looking at a year's supply, that's approximately £120, and in some cases it can be more expensive. So it does improve convenience for many women and makes another site available for access to contraception. But in fact, it's tending to only suit the particular group of women that can afford that.
It's still early days, and whether more women will start paying for the convenience of not having to see their doctor to get the pill remains to be seen. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
Well, it's a big night for us because Sarah and Holly are back here in the studio with us. And Sarah, in football, big night for Brighton as they go to the Palace.
That's right, Fred. Yes, Brighton will go top of the Premier League this evening if they beat rivals Crystal Palace. Graham Potter's men travel to Selhurst Park, knowing victory over Patrick Vieira's side will lift them above the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City as the Seagulls try to build on 4 wins and a draw from their last 5 matches.
We've had a really good start and it'd be fantastic to get another result, but we have to not think too much about that. We just have to think about how we're going to get the result. And like I said, we're playing against a team that's very strong, that has a lot of the things they've been doing well for a long time. They do that well, and Patrick is slowly changing the personnel and making his adjustments. So it's going to be a tough match.
Our sides in the Football League had a good weekend, with Gillingham once again showing their resilience. Andrew Pate kicks off our roundup with a gutsy display from Steve Evans' men.
For the love of the game. eBay sponsors ITV Regional Sports Reports.
Gillingham's manager Steve Evans says his side are lambs to the slaughter to no one in League One after they drew with promotion contenders Oxford United. The Gills going a goal down after just 5 minutes. The draw means Gillingham stay a point above the relegation zone thanks to this fine strike from Oxford old boy Alex McDonald. And Evans' men will be hoping for their first win in 6 attempts when they host Accrington Stanley tomorrow night.
Three points for Crawley in League 2 with this 2-1 victory over Bradford. Goals from Will Ferry and Nick Cerula extended the Reds' unbeaten home league run to 5 matches. In the Women's Super League, it was a disappointing afternoon for Brighton. A single goal cost the Seagulls a point at home to Aston Villa. They do, though, remain in 5th place. On to cricket, and it's been a celebratory few days at Kent. The county held their nerve to beat Middlesex by 2 wickets and claim the County Championship Division 3 title. And yesterday, before play in the 5th England versus New Zealand one-day international, which England won by 203 runs, they presented 4 of their most distinguished servants with county caps.
You know, it's a really special moment, I think, for Kent to recognise all its past cricketers, and there's some women that I've never even met there before, and it's just so lovely. It's such a nice thing to do, and I was really glad that so many came down to support the game today, and it really does kind of feel like a homecoming, really.
So yesterday, Tammy received her county cap and hit a century for England. That's not a bad Sunday, is it?
And not a bad sports spot either. Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Smashing.
3 months ago, we began our search for the ITV Meridian Fundraiser of the Year as part of the Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Awards. Hundreds of you nominated wonderful fundraisers from your communities. And tonight we can reveal the first of our 4 finalists.
Yes, we're going to start with Jeremy Daubney from Tunbridge Wells, who cycled across the country in search of the best English breakfast, a man very much after my own heart. Jeremy wanted to give something back to 2 charities that helped him when he lost his parents within 7 months of one another. And he raised 15 times his initial target, and he's 19. Tony Green went to meet him.
Touring Britain in search of its best breakfast is a charity challenge that many might sign up for. But Jeremy Daubney did it on his bike and in support of 2 good causes that helped him deal with losing both his parents within 7 months. Typical teenage life ended at 15.
You were a close family? We were very close, yeah. We all just got on really, really well. In May 2017, my mum Claire was diagnosed with motor neurone disease, and M&D is just this horrific condition where the muscles in your body slowly shut down. So it started off, her fingers stopped moving and she was unable to have any control over them. And then soon that spread to the rest of her body. Just watching someone you love so much suffer like that was horrific.
7 months later, his father Giles was diagnosed with a brain tumour and given a year to live.
It was horrible. It was watching my parents suffer so much and them do it almost separately, them wanting to be the strong parent for us, but not being able to do that.
You must have been completely unprepared for that.
Yeah, completely unprepared for the diagnosis, but to an element, because the conditions progressed, they were degenerative, you kind of prepared yourself for the end, for the grief in itself. You grieve them while they're alive.
Jeremy's parents wouldn't know him as a cyclist. He only got in the saddle last year during lockdown. Before long, he got the idea for a charity bike ride.
So he wanted to use my circumstances for something good. Cycling really helped me during lockdown, and breakfasts have always been a passion of mine. So I slowly came up with the challenge of cycling around Britain and trying to rate every full English I tasted. And slowly but surely, the Tour de Full English came about.
Covering 2,500 miles, his initial target was £2,500. By the end, he'd raised 37,500, something his sister Jess is very proud of.
We haven't got any family in the country, so it's kind of brought everyone from around the world together, just rallying around Jeremy.
Has it inspired you?
I don't think I'll be going off and doing a 2,500 mile bike ride anytime soon, but it's definitely inspired me to share my story and really support these charities that have really supported us.
I think the characters of my parents definitely motivated me. I know that if they are in my situation, they wouldn't have sat around and wallowed in their sorrows. At the end of the day, when you're presented with a bad deck of cards, you can either use it for good or just sit with it. And I wanted to use it for good.
The money raised will help families just like Jeremy's and also help find a cure. An impressive achievement for someone who's had a lot on his plate. Tony Green, ITV News, Tunbridge Wells.
And another fantastic fundraiser for you tomorrow. And Holly is with us in the studio now. Holly, lovely to see you. I had a week off last week and it was gorgeous, but this morning I got up and it wasn't so nice.
No, I know. And you know, I always think autumn is such a funny season because you can get these huge variations in weather. It can be freezing, boiling, you can get rain warming, and it changes sort of moment to moment, it seems. And I don't know about you, but I hardly ever know what to wear. You need layers, I think, is the answer at this time of year. So September, it can still bring temperatures in the 30s and you've still got very warm seas, but equally it can start to get much chillier, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. And it's because of what we call air masses. So that's the characteristic of the air depending upon where it came from. It might sound a bit complicated, but let's take a look at what's happened over the last couple of days to sort of put that into perspective, if you like. So this was a picture from yesterday. This was Crowborough looking lovely in the sunshine, and yesterday we had our air mass coming up from the tropics. It was very warm. But if we pop on the jet stream, that's the boundary between colder air and warmer air. You've got that weather front pushing through, that brought all of the rain earlier on, and then you can see that colder air piling in behind, coming from the polar regions. So of course, similarly some sunshine out, but just such a different feel.
So it's all changed, whether we like it or not. Let's have a look at the full forecast now with Holly Green.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that autumn is with us for this week. That chillier feel, showers, longer spells of rain, and just a different feel than we've had throughout September so far. So if we look at the detail this evening, still some showers around. They're mainly forming over the channel, so maybe we'll just push inland on that southwesterly breeze. But for a lot of us, it's a dry night. Chillier than we've had of late, though, so temperatures typically in double figures for towns and cities, but lower than that in single numbers out in the countryside. Into tomorrow then, well, it is a showery day. There will be some sunny spells, but these showers, where they do occur, could be heavy and they could potentially be thundery as well, possibly bringing some hail. Gusty winds in and around them, highs 16, 17, 18 on the low side, and of course factor in the wind, and it will just feel that bit chillier as well. And then later on in the day, we've got a more active feature coming through. Look at this. So quite organised, increasing that risk of thunder, lightning, hail, and some strong winds along this as well. Wednesday, and that's your best day of the week. It could start windy, but I do think we'll see some spells of sunshine. But then after that, further weather fronts push in and those winds pick up as well. Take care.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
And in just a moment, the ITV Evening News Hour continues here with Mary Nightingale.
Stacey Paul's got our late news round about 10:45. Join her if you possibly can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your evening and take care. From all of us here.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.